Your muscles don't mean anything in here. That's what the coach said to me after my first ever martial arts session. You have to be fast and more explosive. You have to do a lot of things with kettlebells. But I didn't have any kettlebells in my gym, and also I didn't have any clue whatsoever what to do. So I saw guys shadowboxing with dumbbells basically, and I figured that would improve my punching power, my explosive power. So I tried it out, but it just didn't feel right. Just didn't feel good. But everyone was doing it. So I tried again with less weight this time, because I'm the type of guy who always tries with rather too much than too little weight, but yet it still wasn't better. So I stopped doing it, and well, now I know better. My feeling was right, because this exercise won't improve your punching power. The only thing that it does, it will fuck up your shoulders and maybe even your technique. Well, yes, it's technically the same thing. You have a weight in your hand just as if you would have a boxing glove on, but the boxing gloves are not that heavy. And the problem is, if you accelerate the weight, the dumbbell, then in the end range position, you also have to decelerate it, because you have to pull it back, and the weight won't help you with that. The problem is that then in the end range position you have all this weight with a resistance direction pointing downwards, and all this basically weight on your anterior deltoid, which is the weakest in this position, but the weight is also the heaviest because of the large leverage arm. So, you don't have to be a genius to recognize that this is not good for your anterior deltoid, for your shoulder in general. So how do you improve explosive power then? Because we all want to improve our knockout power, and explosive power is a really important component for that. Well, first of all, it doesn't matter if you're boxing or kickboxing, you always generate power from the ground up. Well, if you're punching just like this, then it won't be as hard as if you would throw a perfect backhand, for example, where you rotate in your foot, your hips, and then basically the power comes through the leg, through the torso, basically the whole posterior chain, and then through the arm into the opponent, or the heavy back, for example. So that's what you basically learn when you're learning the proper technique to generate power from the ground up. So it doesn't matter which martial art you're doing. It's not enough to be explosive in the upper body, in upper body movements, but also you have to be explosive in your legs and in the rotational component too as well. So how do you actually improve explosive power then? Well, there are more general and more specific movements, and just as with any other area of training, you also always want to build a general base first and then move into more specific type movements. And I may sound like a broken record here, but if you want to improve your explosive power, then the most important thing is to have the intention to move the weight as fast as possible. The intention or the attempt to accelerate as fast as possible is even more important than how fast you will actually accelerate your body or the weight or whatever. Because, explosive power comes down in a large part comes down to the nervous system's ability to contract and relax the muscles as fast as possible, and also the coordinations of the intramuscular coordination of the nervous system. So the ability to recruit as much motor units at the same time as fast as possible. That means basically that you want to involve the largest amount or the largest percentage of muscle fibers possible, not just a smaller amount of muscle fibers, because the more you involve, the better or the more explosive in this example you become. So what would actual exercises look like? Like for the legs, for improving explosive power in the legs, for example, you can do a lot of plyometric type movements like jumps. There are basically endless different variations of jumping, like broad jumps, high jumps, lateral jumps, jumps with rotation, single leg jumps, and also drop jumps as well, because drop jumps are especially important to train the stretch reflex, because when you're dropping or when you're landing, when you drop off a box or a bench if you don't have a box and land, then your muscles stretch a little bit because they have to absorb the force, but at the same time they have to redirect the force as fast as possible, because you don't just want to land but you also want to jump up as explosive and as fast as possible right away. So this is basically trains the stretch reflex, which is important to redirect force as quickly as possible. Well, why is this important inside a sparring match or inside a fight? Well, if you're throwing a combination, for example, and then you step to the side and then you come with a hook to the body, for example, then you also need this ability. Apart from all the jumping type movements, you can also do some kettlebell swings, or basically all the kettlebell exercises that my coach told me at my very first martial arts session. But if you don't have kettlebells, for some exercises you can also use dumbbells, which is what I now actually do. Like, I'm doing kettlebell swings with dumbbells, because just be a little bit creative when you're doing your exercises, especially for the explosive power exercises. You can be very, very creative. So also for the rotational part, then you can do some cable chops, for example, so cable rotations. Also the same thing with resistance bands if you don't have a cable machine, or kettlebells. You can or dumbbells, for instance. You can also do rotational kettlebell swings. And for the upper body, plyometric type movements and medicine ball chest passes, for example. Medicine balls are a really great tool to improve explosive power, and there you can also get very, very sport specific. Like, for example, if you're doing a rotational medicine ball underhand or overhand toss or throw, then you're basically doing the same movement as you would when you're doing a hook or a backhand, for example. There you actually train exactly what you actually want to train if you're doing shadowboxing with dumbbells, but without fucking up your shoulders. Because the good thing here is you can accelerate through the entire range of motion instead of having to decelerate the dumbbell again, and at the end range the medicine ball leaves the hands and you smash it into the wall, and this is actually also great fun. So if you're doing exercises like this, I would always do like 3 to 5 sets with 2 to 5 reps per set. And if you don't have a medicine ball or the other equipment, then be creative. I don't have kettlebells, I don't have boxes, and I don't have medicine balls in my gym. So what do I do? For box squats, for example, I use a bench. For some kettlebell exercises you can just use dumbbells as well. And medicine balls, I bought one for myself and bring it to the gym every time I go there or every time I need it, because they are not that expensive and they're a really great tool if you are really serious about improving your explosive power, especially if you want to get really, really sport specific. But then you also need a proper training program, because just putting together random exercises that you found online probably won't get the job done. So here you can, for example, check out the one that I have. Link is in the description. Because knockout power also is not just about explosive power and technique. You also need the proper mobility in order to be able to do the technique. Like, for example, you can't throw a high kick if you can't get your leg up that high. Apart from that, you also have to have a good stability, especially in the core and lower back, basically also through the whole posterior chain, because you can't shoot a cannon out of a canoe. Technically you can, but then you would flip and sink because of the recoil, and that's not what you want. So stability is a really important factor for knockout power too as well, and also strength. You have to have a lot of strength, more for like wrestling and grappling type sports, but for boxing and kickboxing type sports, strength is not that important, but it's still very important, because strength actually is the prerequisite for power. Because power is force times velocity, and well, with all the explosive power type movements, we're actually working more on the velocity part of the equation and the force part of the equation that we would improve with improving our maximum strength. So in order to maximize our knockout power or our fighting performance, it's not enough to have the proper technique. The technique is very important, but we have to have a really good base. So we have to train basically over a wide variety or a wide spectrum of, well, adaptations, sport-specific skills like strength, power, speed, endurance, and stuff like that, and everything basically. And the technique, well, the bigger our general power, which would include all those areas, the bigger that general power is, the general biological power is, the better. And the technique is there to actually use the potential that we have because of this power. So the better the technique, the more of this power that we have, we can actually use in training, in sparring, or in a fight. Now that's it. See you in the next one.